What up, YouTube? It's time. We got Dimensions End Entropy Tier 14 upon us, releasing real soon, real soon. I got y'all to hook up with the guide, you feel me? Before we get rolling, I'm gonna ask that you drop a like, subscribe to my channel for more global and Japanese versions of the City of Final Fantasy Opera Omnia, and leave a comment with the team you're about to run. The video will be laid out as such, and it will be pinned in the description and the comments section. I'm going to go over the stage, the theme of it, roles you want to cover, break it down by wave, who to bring for these stages, and then I'm going to conclude it real nice. So without further ado, let's get into it. The themes of Tier 14 are range resist, mixed elemental resist, and deviating a bit from the Square Enix slide, I'm going to categorize this last point as fast and dangerous bosses. Range resist is pretty self-explanatory. Bring an enchanter if you're going to use a ranged character. As for mixed elemental resist, the first wave is water and earth null. The second wave has thunder, water, and fire weakness depending on its current stance, and the third wave is neutral. As for fast and dangerous bosses, as I said I'm calling it, these guys have high turn rate and brave regen, like in the slide, but the most notable thing I'd say is that there's some very dangerous AoE attacks in this entire stage. The first rule I think it's important to cover is turn manipulation, and this can manifest itself in different forms. This can be roles such as speed down and turn rate down provided by units such as Omnia, Quistis, Garland, Pain, Zidane. You can have paralysis, from Raijin, Dash, Shintoto, and Elknarsh, provided he has Terror Up and is enchanted because he's ranged. Lastly, under turn manipulation, I'd place delayers or deniers of turns, such as Quistis again, Garland, and Omnia. Also Orin, who has AoE delay on his EX attack. Damage reduction is another role that I'd say it's important to cover. For that, you have the upcoming Dash, who provides break damage reduction to the party. You have Hope, who fulfills a similar role. Aphmau, who provides that role and is thankfully not resisted and also brings a nice debuff immunity. And you have Porum, who will allow you to eat pretty much any HP attack no matter how nasty it gets. Lastly, the most standard role to cover is Damage Dealer. You'll want someone recent, although reaching back a little isn't going to be impossible, but the top of the line damage dealers around this time of the release of the stage are going to be Squall, Shintoto, Alice with her rework, Garland, and I'd say Ultimacia, but this role is pretty flexible, so don't feel too constrained to recent units like I said. First off, we have the Eagle Gun. We're going to go through that. It is water and earth null, so if you're bringing water or earth, don't expect to do any damage to the Eagle Gun. It's going to open with a single target brave attack, as we can see right here, and it is going to use Howl immediately afterwards and grant itself attack up, defense up, speed up, brave barrier, and brave up, and max brave up in that order. The brave barrier specifically is a Zac shield based on its eye brave. Other things to note that the boss does is a single target move called Airstrike, which is going to hit harder based on the number of buffs it has. And it has a hard-hitting AoE Brave plus HP attack in which it recovers the eye Brave and then does Brave attacks and then an HP attack. As for strategy in dealing with the Eagle Gun, I'd say that this boss is the less dangerous of the two in this wave, but at the same time, you're going to want to kill it first. Avoid damaging the guard scorpion if you can, and focus your damage on the Eagle Gun. Dealing with its buffs, you can occupy its slots with frame debuffs such as Omnia, so it doesn't fully buff itself, making it less dangerous. You can also push off the buffs with your own debuffs, be them generic or framed. As you apply them, less slots, the less the Eagle Gun can buff itself. The shield will be about 4 to 5k bravery, so anyone hitting harder than that should be able to pierce it no problem. If you have an eye brave down debuffer such as Ami or Orin or Seymour, for example, I guess, if you want to bring him up here. That'll lessen it, but the shield shouldn't be too noticeable to really hamper you in any way. But low potency attacks will have a hard time against it. If you see an all attack, definitely brace for it, as it could definitely kill you. This run I've got right here, they killed it first, as we can see right here with the splash. So just focusing it down, and I'll explain why you want to focus that down in a second, but let's move on. The trickier part of this wave, I'd say, is the Lunatic Guard Scorpion. It's actually relatively tame until it gets down to about, I'd say, 80% health. Then it's going to target itself, as shown here, and it's going to raise its tail. Raising its tail gives it an invisible speed up, as you can see in the turn order right there. Oof. And it's going to grant itself Brave regen. After this, what's going to follow is a lot of tail lasers, which is a very nasty AoE Brave gain into HP attack. So I missed it right there. Let's see. So watch. Brave gain. Look at that. This move hurts a lot, and as you can see, it's sped up right after, so you really don't want to deal with these at all. As for strategy against the Scorpion, once it gets below 80%, you want to give it as few turns as possible. You can do this by just straight up killing it. Delaying or deleting it will also solve this problem, but it's in your best interest because those AoEs are so nasty. If you don't heal up between them, or if it's too fast for you, it's just going to straight up kill you. That's why I'd say worry about the Eagle Gun first, and when you're ready to take down the Scorpion, do it. If you're bringing a lot of AoE, then I'd say just focus the Scorpion and get it as few turns as possible. But once it gets below 80%, it needs to die or not act quickly. For wave 2, we have the Lunatic Guardian. And I'm going to have to thank Macnol from Dissidia Info with his boss guide and his call to arms for figuring out this boss on Aphmau's Lost Chapter. It functions the exact same, and it gave a lot of insight into this boss. But without further ado, let's get right into it. The Lunatic Guardian is a bit tricky in that its actions differ based on its stance. I'm going to be explaining it chronologically, assuming that the boss is getting turns, but it is very possible to skip out on certain actions depending on how little turns the boss gets. For more detailed information, Macnol's guide on Aphmau's Lost Chapter will go in depth, but again, I'm going to be walking through this assuming that the boss is getting appropriate turns at each interval. The boss is going to open with a Brave plus HP single target, so on its first turn, make sure you don't get broken, because this could actually kill you if you're not too careful. It's going to switch to Kraken mode, as seen here. It's going to grant itself Brave regen. Any Brave attacks that it does have high turn rate, and it can also inflict speed down on you. At about 70% health, the Guardian is going to jump to Marlboro mode and grant itself a decent sized defense up. It's going to do a single target Brave attack, being Tentacle Slap after that, and immediately after it's going to target all and for an AoE speed down, blind, and poison, aka bad breath. Getting hit by this is a very bad idea, so avoid it if possible. At about, I'd say, 40% health, give or take. Don't quote me on the numbers here, because I wasn't able to accurately discern it. It's going to go into Ultimate Weapon mode. It's going to grant itself attack up, again, sizable. It's going to do a single target magic attack on its first attack, and it's going to hit extremely hard, as you can see there. Eventually, it'll do an AoE Brave attack that has high turn rate. Getting broke by this will be a disaster, as it will probably go very fast and kill you right afterwards. So again, avoid break, avoid AoE HP attack. Very deadly. After it does its Ultimate Weapon mode, it's going to jump back between the Marlboro mode and Ultimate Weapon mode. Marlboro being the debuff mode, and then Ultimate Weapon being the hard-hitting, high turn rate mode. This wave overall is pretty manageable. Just DPS it down and let it get as few turns as possible, as is the theme of this entire stage. The less actions this thing gets, the better. So delay it, paralyze, delete it away. Avoiding the debuffs, you can just kind of ignore it if you have Aphmau and just evade them altogether with her debuff immunity. Killing it outright or denying it turns, like I said, is a viable strategy. And with some boss AI manipulation, again, thanks to Macnol, shout out to thecityinfo.com, go there, check it out. You can avoid certain phases of the fight if you attack correctly. All in all, just attempt to heal up and brace yourself for the doozy of the next wave. Now for the most anticipated boss of this tier, we have the Lunatic CPU back with a vengeance. This guy functions a bit differently from the last chaos we fought him in, so let's really just nail down on that strategy. It's real important to follow it here, or else it can get real nasty real quick. The gist of it is, you want to kill from left to right. The defense node in particular is particularly dangerous because you can see on this scene right there, look at that, every time it gets a turn and it's targeting the big node, it's going to heal that much. That's not what you want. The main node also gets 50% HP damage reduction while both nodes are active, so it only makes sense to kill the defense node first to prevent the heals and to knock off that HP damage reduction. To showcase the massive stat spike in action, if you kill them out of order, or at least not from right to left, you can see Ami's skill 1 doing about 4k a hit right there. Well, if we jump forward to after they killed the attack node, we can see Aphmau's EX doing that little. And here we have the skill 1 again. Damage cut in half. That's how severe it is. Please, please, please kill them left to right fully, or else you're in for a rough time unless you can battery through that brave damage reduction. Probably the most dangerous part about this fight is the recast of the CPU. It's real bad. It hits pretty hard, but really the nightmare starts when it breaks you, because as soon as it gets a break, it gets increased HP damage up on its attack, and it does that. Basically, it's a wipe. If you get broken by the recast, you can pretty much, you've promised yourself a reset, so don't let it happen. All things considered, if you kill them in the order I suggest, then taking out the attack node at the end should be a breeze, and you'll have a finished stage on your hands. Very well done. For top units on the stage, it's hats off to Omnia. They are the overall MVP. Turn deletion gives you a lot of breathing room to just wail on the boss, and just kind of is a get out of jail free card for anything that might be dangerous, be it a dangerous AoE or debuffs or anything really. The speed and turn rate down combined also prevent the bosses from having a lot of turns, even when they do get active, you're not deleting them. And the debuffs block out any potential buffs, especially if you can stack with other members of your team. Now, they're not required for the stage per usual, but good alternatives would be Garland with his AoE speed down and massive damage, Quistis with the combined speed down and turn rate down, and also Zidane because he's super speedy and also has great speed down. For covering the damage roll, Squall's going to be up there as number 1, just because the stage is mostly multiple targets aside from the middle wave, and Squall's just got insane output AoE style. He potentially has a burst weapon, which puts him leagues above all the other DPS, and he just hits super hard. He's pretty flexible, it's just a damage dealer, so he can adapt to pretty much any team you throw at him. Alternatives again are Garland, because he's bringing crazy DPS along with his delays, although he's not doing as much AoE damage as Squall is. Alice with her consecutive turns is also pseudo turn manipulation because she is outspeeding the bosses, letting them have as few turns as possible just because she's moving around them. Shintoto is also an excellent DPS, and although she's not as burst damagey as Squall, for example, but she's got her AoE paralysis and she's enabling any other elemental unit, so keep that in mind, and she will also have a burst weapon. For the support character, I have Aphmau. She's finally not resisted. as melee has been resisted in the past 2 tiers. She's bringing brave damage reduction, burst heals, aura, speed down, the whole package, and debuff immunity to avoid the Malboro debuffs on the second wave, along with anything else that these bosses are throwing at us. She's just an excellent all-around character, and if you haven't thrown her in a Dimensions End slot, I throw her here. Alternatively, you can bring Dash for the damage reduction and burst heals. Hope is also a good choice. Charlotta, she's super flexible. Her sap will help control Boss Brave if it gets too out of control, which it shouldn't, along with emergency gravity shave. And Overflow is to boot. Also, Raijin. Raijin is a good support here, just for his heals and his paralysis to manipulate the boss's turns. Lastly, I'd say Porum, again, is just a clutch unit. She can prevent death via her skill 2 and EX, just saving lives. So, as long as you hit those strokes with those teams, you should be good to go. Some team examples you could run, for example, and probably the most meta choice would be Squall, Aphmau, Omnia, Kefka, Aphmau, Charlotta, for example, or Ali, Ami, Hope. You could also stack debuffs with Pain, Sarah, and Aphmau, abuse some turn rate down with Ramza, Pora, and Lion, or you could stack weakness damage with Ultimecia, Shentoto, and Dash. There's a lot of possibilities out there, but as long as you respect the mechanics, you should be good to go. And that's it. Thanks for watching. I hope I helped everyone out. Tried to keep it a little bit more concise this time. Just remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Comment with the team you're trying to run on the stage. Drop questions if you got them. I'll be around to answer them. And have a good day. Peace.